Good afternoon, and welcome to another repulsive version of Diatribes from the voice of doom. Now here's your repugnant and recalcitrant host, voice of doom. Hello. Alright, I'm back for now, and I'm going to catch you up on the last week since I haven't done a diatribe in a while, and comment a bit more on my subject previously called Hearts and Minds, because I want to talk more about that because it's a serious subject. I'm going to be a little historical and a little sociological. Now, the key to power for a despot or a leader or a dictator or a political movement is to win the hearts and minds of the masses. Once you have that, then the rest is easy. And that goes for politics, religion, or your personal life. So let's go through the annals of history and see how that works. Now, with religion, hearts and minds are very important in propagating a religion. And usually in the early days, in the infancy of a new movement, it's done correctly. Like, take for instance Christianity. Once a group of Christians formed after the resurrection of our Lord Jesus Christ, they propagated their belief on a one-to-one basis, which is the way you're supposed to do it. It's one person having compassion for another and saying, this will help you. And you show compassion, you help them, you show that you're trustworthy, and then the person will take your words to heart, and then you grow as a movement. Now, as these centuries passed, Christianity basically became draconian and lost all efficacy, probably within 500 years, because the powers that be saw the efficiency or the wisdom in combining a growing religious movement with the political system that was going on at the time. Constantine, whoever the first Roman emperor was that embraced Christianity, merged the two movements together, and then in a few hundred years you had the Spanish Inquisition, and you had other draconian means of winning the hearts and minds of people. Believe in what we believe or go to the rack. So that's where it all went wrong. So it's irredeemable now. I don't like to tell people that, because they believe, and I believe in faith also, and I know that they're struggling to find the right path, and it may not happen this lifetime, but they're doing expedient means. They're doing provisional teachings in order to reach the true way, which is Nam-myoho Renge Kyo, honor the law of cause and effect. Irrefutable, and it covers all the bases. Buddhism is the same way. You win the hearts of minds not en masse, not by mass advertising, but by one-to-one contact, person to person, heart to heart. That's how you win the hearts and minds, and that's what our movement is doing right now, and we're in our infancy. Even though there's only a few tens of millions that practice Nichiren's Buddhism, it will eventually take hold. And when it does, this planet will be a much better place. It's absolutely irrefutable that if everybody lives by the law of cause and effect, knowing what they do will have an effect on their future, things will be better. Now, let's talk about hearts and minds in a political arena. Schicklgruber wanted to have a coup d'etat with a few handful of followers, and it was called the Beer Hall Push, and it failed miserably, and he went to prison. Very cushy prison, but it failed. And after he wrote Mein Kampf, My Struggle, and got out of prison, he decided that the best way to gain power is through the political system. And so he was very relentless and very steadfast in campaigning. He made Orangey look like a piker when it comes to campaigning. He was the first candidate to use an airplane to go from place to place, and he gave speeches everywhere, and slowly won the hearts and minds of people. Now, once he got into power, he did a lot for the people, and that's what won them over. He built highways. He revitalized the economy. I'm not going to say how he did it. He did it probably by just using money any way he wanted to make himself look good. Now, when he made speeches, he said exactly what people wanted to hear. If he was talking to right-wing anti-Semites, then he was anti-Semite. If he was talking to farmers, then he was all for agriculture. If he was talking to workers, he was all for industry. So he was all things to all people. And the pinnacle probably came when they had the Ausschluss, which is where they annexed Austria and reclaimed all the lands lost by Germany. And he had throngs and throngs and throngs of people adoring him for what he did. Now that turned bad very shortly afterwards, when the bombs started falling on Berlin and Dresden and everywhere else. Then the Germans realized that they made a grievous error in electing this person, who suspended elections after he was elected and burnt the Reichstag and the whole 9 yards. Go back into history. But he won the hearts and minds of people. Now let's go on. Richard Milhous, Vietnamization was the new credo, and that meant we want to win the hearts and minds of the Vietnamese people by bombing the crap out of them. Didn't work very well, did it? But let's move on to the throngs and the hearts and minds of today's activists. There are throngs and throngs of people protesting, and they're not protesting against beheading babies. They're not protesting against raping women and then killing them. They're protesting the response to that it's very wrong that Israel should be so heavy-handed in their leveling of Gaza. And civilians are getting killed because they're being held hostage there by their government, Hamas, which they would have voted for again 3 months ago because they thought things were hunky-dory with Hamas in charge. But Hamas did not want elections, so that was a moot point. But I see the throngs of people carrying Palestinian flags, or whatever that means, and basically the world is turning against Israel, just as the revelation in the Holy Book prophesied. And eventually, even what used to be the United States will turn against Israel. Because Israel's not going to let up. They're tired of living in fear all the time. No matter what they do, or try to placate or negotiate, they keep getting bombed. And sooner or later, people get tired of that. And it's like, we're going to get rid of every last one of you once and for all, and that's that. So they're doing that, and they have a long road to hoe, because once they get finished with Hamas, they're going to have to deal with Hezbollah. And once they get done with Hezbollah, they're going to have to deal with ISIS. And once they get done with ISIS, they're going to have to deal with Iran. And by the time they're done bombing all those places, there's going to be other countries jumping into the fray. Because it's either jump in the fray or be the fray, be flayed. That's just no two ways about it, because if you don't have the hearts and minds of the people, then the people rise up, and that's an ugly sight. Ask Ceausescu. Ask Gaddafi if getting on the wrong side of the masses is a good idea. So if the masses say we are on this side, then you're going to be on that side. So that's what's going to happen with that. Now, hearts and minds of the activists. When I see people who are hoping that their loved ones might be returned from Gaza, returned from their captivity, much as the Israelis have been captives throughout the millennia, they put posters up in various cities showing the pictures of the loved ones that have been taken, and they range from 9 months old to probably 75 or 80 years old, of all genders. And then people come along and tear it down. And when I see that, I see evil. I see people with no hearts and no minds, just knee-jerk, evil reactionaries that are in league with Satan and should be treated as such. That's why I do not have any weaponry, because I wouldn't be able to control myself if I saw something like that. That's why I live in Carson City, where I don't have to deal with seeing that. Because I've lived a life already, and if I ended on a bad note, well, that's my karma, but I can lose it sometimes. Now, tearing down those pictures, I was just wondering, like, say for instance, one of these activists had a little sister, and that little sister was abducted and disappeared. And you're frantic, not knowing what became of her. What's happening right now? Is she alive or dead? We don't know. So one of these activists puts posters up of their little sister saying, "Missing, please, any information, reward offered." And someone else came along and just tore it down saying, "Who cares about your sister? Who gives a crap?" What would happen then? Would the activists just stand there like, "Gee, why are you doing that?" Or would people come along and tear that person limb from limb for being a heartless fiend? Like, we're putting posters up for this girl, and all you can do is tear them down and say, "Who cares about her?" So what goes around comes around. And I don't wish for little girls to be abducted, but they're bringing it on themselves. Every single one of those tens of thousands of activists on the street will get the karmic retribution that they won't be able to handle. And when people say, "We don't care," then they will say, "How can you be so heartless?" So those throngs, they're all doomed, as we all are, but they're even worse, because when they shuffle off this mortal coil, their next lifetime is going to be miserable. And lifetime after lifetime will be born into misery. And I don't feel sorry for them. I get very angry when I see activists tearing down those pictures, because it shows to me that they are devils and should be treated as a devil would be treated. No tribunal and no trial. You can't be tried for what's in your heart. You just get rid of the devils. So I'm not going to be doing diatribes as often. I might try a new format. I said I was going to be minimalist and primitive, but I've been very much too minimalist. Haven't changed things in years. So I might try a new format or try some new things and fool around with that a bit. But I can't comment much on what's happening because I've already seen what I've said is coming true. Armageddon is now here, and pretty soon it'll be hard to even get food. So we'll deal with things one thing at a time, but I just wanted to get one in and enjoy what life holds for you next. Bye.